Hey, Liam.
How are you guys doing?
Pretty good. Yourself?
Doing well.
I'm all right. I'm all right. It's a weird week. You're like you have to kind of turn yourself up, and I'm ready to quiet down for a little bit after this. But yeah, it's kind of like and it's also weird because normally it's like you're doing festivals and stuff, so you're traveling around and you're meeting people face to face and having beers and kind of celebrating. And this is just like this weird portal where I just went to the store to get milk for my wife, and now I'm like sitting down doing an interview, and you're like, this is just different. But all good. I saw your guys post on Instagram, which I thought was great. Thank you very much. That was cool. Excited to talk to you.
Thank you for taking the time away from the milk run to meet us.
Super close.
We're all working from home and balancing. I got my dog over here. I had to lock her up because she'd be up my leg.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, it's we had our fourth kid this year in 2020 in lockdown. So which was thank you, but it was kind of good. It was like getting a new puppy. Like everybody had something joyful to kind of bring us together. So I named him Trent after the alien in the movie, because I'd kind of had that character being screamed around me for 6 years, and I was like, I still like it. Still like the name. That's a winner. We'll name the kid that.
That's pretty good.
Love your background over there.
Yeah, this was done by Julian Rico, who's this really great French designer who got turned on to us on Twitter, and he just did we actually, Matthew Choust and I, we do our own campaign. So like Vertical does kind of the more Photoshoppy, loud artwork, and we do like each movie we kind of do our own ones as well. Because it's and I don't want to say it's not that much money, but it's like it's to us it's worth the investment, and when we get to work directly with the artist ourselves, so that like you can kind of see, I think, the more like tasteful art directed stuff is like coming from us. And you're like, yeah, look, you guys have to sell your stuff on iTunes and Redbox. You know more about that than me, but like, I just want to make sure that I get to have that creative outlet in the marketing as well. So it ends up just having a lot of promotional materials out there, which is always good.
Definitely. They reminded me, when I first saw them, they reminded me of like alternate Blu-ray cover art, or which is really cool because you don't.
I know, and I wish we talked to them about doing this as a Blu-ray packaging, and the problem is that the first movie is at a completely different distributor. It was Relativity Universal, and then I think it's been sold to someone else. So like to get the rights of all three is tricky, but they're probably going to do the Beyond and Skylines with this artwork. So that would be cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. That sounds great. So we're gonna jump into some questions here. We love the film. We watched it just this past week, and we've been interacting with a lot of your casting crew here.
Cool.
Everyone's so excited about this film, and so are we. A lot of the questions we have, one of them was, how did you originally get started with the franchise, right from the beginning?
Well, it's kind of like my whole origin because, I started, I came out to LA. I was like, I'll give myself a year before. And then I thought maybe I'd do like entertainment law out of college. I moved out with my really good friend, Matthew Santoro, really talented graphic designer, which helped a lot because I think if you come out when you're a writer like me, I had like no visuals, nothing. Like he was getting work right away because he had like a real portfolio, and I'm like, hey, do you like my stuff? They're like, get the hell out of here. So he helped me like get indoors, because then we'd all hang out, have beers or whatever, and then I'd pitch people ideas, and so that kind of like got me started. We were like working on like by pothead productions, like where we literally got paid in weed and like burritos, like cable commercials, music videos, like some guy like got money from his parents to make some crazy short, and it would be like, can you help this make sense? That type of first year in LA type of projects. And through that, we met Greg and Colin. They were friends of that group, and just hang out socially, and then started pitching them writing, pitching them visuals, and they had a lot of commercials and music videos at the time, and they needed a treatment written, and they were like, Liam, can you do this? It was like eBay China, and me and Matthew, he did the visuals, I did the writing, and we kind of did that for like the next 2 years, and we did all of their music videos and commercials, and eventually AVP Requiem came over, and we all worked on that together. Like we worked on the pitch for them, and they came in and like hit it out of the park with the studio. Because I put so much time into it, they were like, you should come up on set and just, be sort of our liaison. So I would kind of be in the trailer, working with the previs artist, going back to them while they're directing the scene to try to figure out what the action scenes would be the next week, which is always kind of the weirdest part about even that came to this movie. But I didn't have a team around me. It was just me, because I don't have the money that they had. But it's like you think you're going to have enough time to prep, and you never do. And it's always like you actually are prepping for the next day's shoot while you're shooting the thing that you're shooting. And so that is the most mentally taxing part of production. But that's how I got my start. And then after that movie, it was like the Red cameras came out. Everyone, they bought Red cameras. We were all about just shooting our own material. And he had Greg, who was the co-director of that one, had bought this penthouse overlooking Los Angeles. And I was like, oh, well, we should do something, here. Paranormal Activity. I think that was also like in the ethos of like DIY, that movie had been such a smash. Yeah. Cloverfield was obviously a really cool thing, which is funny because those are both found footage, but we're like, we don't want to do found footage, but we want to use that, low budget filmmaking to make something that we could shoot really cheap, and we'll fill in the visual effects later because they own a visual effects company. So it was really very like practically based, and kind of less. I think that's one of the things that we ended up running into problems with, that it wasn't so like, okay, what's the story you want to tell? It was kind of like, we just, had all this passion to like make a movie and go ahead and just forge ahead and do it. And then, so then that's kind of the story of the first one. Even then we're like, as we were going, we barreled ahead so quickly, and we got so ahead of ourselves that then towards the end, it was like, felt like we were finding the movie more, which is a little bit more what the sequels are, which is more nerdy, more comic booky, more, embracing that kind of gonzo B movie energy, which is what happens at the very end of that one. And we were like, we did one reshoot that kind of inserted a little bit more of that throughout the first one, but it almost needed another like week of shooting to do like a big ending. And I think that would have been the hindsight of what that movie, if we had been able to do like a really big, cool action scene on the ship at the end and kind of leave it in a bigger, like, fuck yeah moment, I think that movie would have a totally different reputation.
Yeah. You can totally see the artistic growth through the series, and how you're able to experiment a lot more, and you just went balls to the wall, essentially with it, and fully embraced it.
Yeah, I think that was also like the first movie wasn't, it was definitely more collaboration, but I don't even if I were to ask all four of us, it wasn't like this, like the entourage type setup of it was like not anything that we were like, oh, we love this, we like really want to make that movie. It just kind of felt like it fit within what we could do. So I think that was also something that I was like, because the first movie's critical backlash was so harsh, it was like going into a second one, I'm like, I'm really going to just like sink my teeth and embrace like everything that I love about movies. I'm going to embrace the archetypes that I love, and I'm going to embrace the energy that I love. So I was like, I want this to be, what if, John McClane was in an alien invasion and then he gets dropped into Apocalypse Now. And so it was like, that was just crazy. I was like, the first movie was like, a Die Hard in an alien invasion. And then the second one was sort of a Die Hard on an alien ship with, a little bit of Independence Day and stuff like that. And then the third one, it was like, we're Predator, Apocalypse Now. And I want to make 3 movies in one, and I'm going to go for broke and do, go as crazy as I possibly can. And I just kept getting all these crazy gifts along the way. Like, you know, once we started scouting for Asia, that we had the chance hookup where someone was like, oh, do you think you'd like to have the guys from the Raid in this movie? And I was like, it was like not something I thought was be even possible. You know, you just kind of forget that you could just call people and ask them.
Yeah.
You're like, no,
Yeah.
they wouldn't be interested. And so then they're like, yeah, like they had another movie that just fell apart and they had opening for 2 months. They're like, can we do choreo for you? And you're like, yes, you can. That was actually a lot of the first movie was me like just working with such good people that I'd be like, great, moving on. Like, you know, no notes. Because I know Frank obviously knows what he's doing, and Iko and Yaya know what they're doing. And so you're kind of like, why are they even asking for my opinion on this? Like let's keep it going, you know? So to me, that was the growth for me. I felt more on the third one was that, I kind of knew how to make these movies at this point and knew, you know, the world and the tone, because I felt like the third act of Beyond Skyline gets the tone right more than the first two. And so it was kind of like from the beginning of 3 was like, okay, we take the world seriously, we take the situation seriously, but we don't take ourselves seriously. And it's still funny how some people can't get it. You know, when I see negative reviews, it's generally people that think it takes itself super seriously. And I'm like, oh, you didn't get that there's like several parts where it's kind of winking at you and you're like angry that this thing thinks it's so self-important. I was like, it really doesn't. I feel like that's actually what's good about the bloopers, that they're kind of like a weird like purity test for me. That if you like don't like the bloopers, it's just like, okay, well then you were never gonna like this movie. Yeah, it was never. If that is bumping for you, then you're just not on the wavelength of what, you know, I want to do.
Yeah, totally. I know there's certain scenes in it when we were watching it that I could tell were like just like almost either the characters having fun with it or just like the entire cast just having fun with it. And certain quotes like was it Alexander Siddig, where he's like I am become death, the destroyer of worlds, and stuff like that. And then there was one where like me and Stefano realized right away, we were big like
when I'm behind the monitor and he's doing that, I'm like laughing my fucking
ass off. I figured that would be the case.
You know, I'm like, this is amazing, because he actually in the script it was like I am become death, and then he just walked out, and I was like, can we do the whole quote? Like, I know I didn't have it in the script, but like let's just do it. And he's like, really? And I was like, yes, and can you do it with the glass of whiskey? And he's like, oh, Jesus Christ. And he's like, okay. And he does it. And I'm like, and even like the first take, he went like even bigger scenery chewing. And I was like, okay. I know I asked for, I would always say with Alexander, just a little bit more delicious. And he's like, yeah. I know exactly what you mean. And it's like this perfect rendition. But then, yeah, that's and even weird little things that I think are hysterical, like Owens when he's like, sure, we're really doing this, and he's like, death or glory, Corporal. Like I'd laugh every time I hear it, and like it's not really funny. It's not like a joke, but it's just like you kind of feel like you're back in this, you know, a cross between like a 1987 movie and like Halo, like the opening of Halo, and like, you know, like it is that like a video game aesthetic
has a mix
meets in a late 80s aesthetic that it just like touches my pleasure centers. So that's all I'm doing.
Yeah, that's fine. One of the other lines that stood out that me and Stefano found right away, I don't know if it was on purpose or we just thought of it, but when Rose, I guess from Lindsay Morgan, she's like, she says, it's a tomb. And then we thought that was it might not be, but we thought it was a call out for like Lord of the Rings, because in the first movie,
there's like that whole sequence. As I was writing it, I didn't think of Lord of the Rings, and then I'm like filming. I'm like, oh, this is definitely Lord of the Rings. And then in post, I was like, I just realized I was totally channeling it. It's like my son. It's one of my favorite movies. It's also my son's favorite movie. Is 11. So we like watch it every year. So it just kind of like like seeped into my brain. And then I was like, you know, to make that that part where they're getting chased and they're going around the light shaft, yeah, it was definitely like we do the same Lord of the Rings, like sweeping down the column thing as they're chasing. That was a definite homage to that. But yeah, a lot. Even the beginning to have the narration, with this with James Cosmo is very, very Fellowship. And then the imagery with her with the ring in her hand. So there's just all that stuff here is in your brain is like a blender. And there are things like just the practicality of we've got this really you get this really cool female lead, and we didn't want her to be stuck in the same outfit the whole time, and like her hair, we wanted it to be different, and we're like, so we did all this work out on different looks so that it would be exciting, and that was something that was very important to her as well. And I'm like, okay, so we're gonna change the hair, but like we have to call it out. You look like you went to an alien salon.
I know.
So that was the whole like it wasn't, there was something subtle in there like, wow, you look different. But I was like, no, we added even 2 lines where I love Johnny's where he's like, because I mean you look great, and then the general's kind of like, I like what you did with your hair, just kind of put a little lampshade on it. But at the same time I was like, if it bothers you, that's the thing. Like, I think you probably, you're watching movies wrong. It's made by people. I don't understand why people can't accept that. It's like, it's made by people in short spurts over a long period of time. Which is like, again, the blooper thing. Like it's a curtain call at the end of the movie. Like all these people worked on it. This is like, it's for them really more than even the viewer. To me, it's like a nice thing for the whole cast and crew.
Yeah, it's fun to see that little.
We got into reviewing just again because we love watching films. We love talking about them. We enjoy them. But one of the things that we discussed when we started reviewing was how would we distinguish between different types of films. You can't treat and rate an indie film the same way you would rate a blockbuster.
No.
And
I mean, that's like, so people are like, oh, I'm going to watch it right after I watch the last episode of Mandalorian. I'm like, that last episode's like probably double our budget. Like it's like significantly. I just watched the one from last week to catch up, and I was like, holy shit. Like just the CG on this chase through with like they're doing a sorcerer riff. That show is pretty much writing wise is like a similar thing to ours, where it's like it's taking other plot models and just redoing the paint on a lot of different things. But it doesn't seem to catch as much flack. But the stuff that they're doing is all like kind of next level technology, whereas what I'm using is pretty much like making a movie like you would make in 1987, but with VFX. But and even with the VFX, I try to use things that are tried and true, because otherwise we'll just totally blow the budget out. Like every single eye in the movie on the aliens is done in 2D After Effects. We have a really great After Effects artist who can do all that and make it feel like 2.5D, 3D. But it's not like we did like like a fully Maya pass on all the eyes and then did flame compositing or Houdini or any of that type of stuff. So we're kind of using, whatever works to make this whole, story, hang together. But I think that's kind of what, to me, is what the charm of it is, though.
Yeah,
definitely has that charm, and you've embraced it. Starting from Beyond Skylines, you just said, you know what? I don't even give a shit what you think about it.
Yeah, it's the kitchen sink approach. It's like try to overachieve, and I was even saying like it'd probably just be better for my career if I would be like, okay, I only have 10 million. I'm going to make this 10 million look perfect, and instead of trying to make $100 million for 10 million. But like, it's just not in my nature. This is what I love to do.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Where do you see the franchise potentially going in other mediums, anything like that?
I mean, I'm focused on the movies. I think there's definitely potential to do a TV series or even an anthology type of thing. But to me, I feel like to be honest, I feel like we're kind of just hitting our stride. And I feel like with Lindsay's Rose, we have like a real, franchise centered lead that has such an interesting kind of position within the world that we've made now. Like, it's always great when you can find that like your lead is like the most important person in the world, but then also they're interesting. Because usually when that character is like harnessed with all that pressure, they can become kind of boring. And I think what she did such a great job on is that, she shows you that she's got the pressure, but she's not like the mopey, like, why me, type of savior character that you can kind of see in a lot of things. She's kind of, she's haunted by the past. She has PTSD, but she's very much kind of, a person of action, and is like, when she's, presented with these obstacles, she's going to, barrel right through them. So that's why it is an interesting kind of fun role that like, the ending, without giving too much away or anything, like I feel like there's a really interesting place where you could go, because we've set her up to have this sort of hero worship of a certain character. And, there's places where that could be an interesting sort of disillusionment and an enlightenment. And it would be fun to kind of bring some of the old toys back out of the closet and smash them together again.
Yeah, the tease at the end can definitely expand in a lot of definitely. And with Lindsay as Lindsay's great, and I've been watching her on television, in the 100 since season 1. So she just like leapt off the screen to me in season 1, and it was just one of those people that I, like in the back of my head. But it is really like weird how it even happened, because I cast the little girl in Beyond Skyline like 2 years before her. Like we filmed that in late 2014, early 2015. And it's this little girl who is living in Singapore. Her mother's Australian. I believe her father's Indian. And like 2 years later, like Lindsay Morgan was just it's just this interesting kind of things lining up. Because I wasn't planning on doing Lindsay's character and Beyond. That was we did a test screening in 2016. We'd finished the movie pretty much, and people were asking questions about, well, is this little girl just going to die tomorrow? Is she just going to waste away and grow, into an old woman by the end of the week? And I was like, well, that's an issue. So we figured out this kind of, this bookends with Lindsay's character. And that gave me this sort of like in on what this third one could be, because we're jumping 10 years in the future and we're going to fight the aliens. So I was like, okay, that kind of, and then I worked with her for that one day and I had such a great time. But it really was like, I'm looking at the little girl and I'm going through pictures on IMDb and like thinking. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, I loved her. Let's reach out, see if she's available. And then all of a sudden, 3 years later, she's the lead of part 3. Is kind of just crazy.
Yeah, let's talk a bit about the casting, I guess, that you did. Was it is it totally like, were you doing the casting selections, or did you have a casting director helping out with you as well, and like the process for getting everybody together, like Daniel Bernhardt and Alexander Siddig?
Yeah, no, it's definitely my producing partner Matthew Chouse and I, and then we had 2 casting directors. We had the casting director from Beyond Skyline, John McAlery, who did the LA portion of casting, and then we had Colin Jones out of the UK. But it was also kind of just on relationships. I'm pretty good friends with Daniel's agent, who went to the same college as mine. So when he's like 4 years younger than me, and now he's this big agent. But when he came out to LA, he reached out and was like, you can, so I think I met him for coffee when he was like 22. So we just, stayed in touch. And so he ended up being Eco's agent, which was like after the fact of working with Eco. But so that was how we reconnected. And then but Daniel was the second person cast, because it was kind of like, I knew I needed someone with the, you know, action movie martial arts chops.
For sure.
And I'd written the character Owens. I didn't write it for him, but it's just so perfect for him. Once, if you had written that character and then you see that guy's headshot and you're like, oh yeah, wait, him. Oh, right. That's, he's
So
him
true,
come
yeah.
to life. So
Yeah, it's like the perfect cast,
then
right?
it's the perfect thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, you know, don't really have to do any other work on Owens. Like Owens is done.
Yeah.
And then it helped, you know, all the fights for Owens were in the script, but they just got bigger.
Of course.
And so then it was like, we were in Belgium prepping the movie, and I went to Berlin to meet Daniel, who was filming the Nobody for Bob Odenkirk, like proof of concept with Bob Odenkirk, and Jean Aiden, who ended up becoming our second unit director. They were filming like fight scenes in a garage in Berlin to get funding for that movie.
Oh, wow.
And so when you first meet Daniel, you're like, holy shit, like he's a legit 6'3", and he's huge. So that, and I knew Lindsay's, you know, not the tallest person.
Yeah, cool.
So then I started being like, how do I cast this Leon character? Like he has to be, you know, he can't be like a shrinking violet. And so that kind of, we had a couple of different people that were on for Leon. One of them was really big. One of them was in the middle. And then he dropped out of 2 different scheduling conflicts, which was crazy. And the same agent who repped Daniel turned us on to Jonathan Howard. And at first I'm like, okay, he's kind of a skinny guy. I remember him from Thor, but I did a Zoom with him, like, and I kind of could see this little like young Christian Bale sort of energy to him. And he's definitely like, his personality is what compensates for his size. Like he's not afraid of anything.
Mm-hmm.
And and he also had been doing Thai boxing on his own for like 15 years. So he had a really good, you know, physical presence to him.
Right.
Once he got to Lithuania, I was like, go to the gym every day and eat as much as you possibly can. And he put on like 10 pounds of muscle, which helped fill out his costume and everything. So it was good. Yeah. But he definitely, you know, like his first night was like, he had to walk over, and it was one of the first nights to shoot, and like be a dick to James Cosmo, who's like, you know, like this kind of like big, like acting legend. So it was, again, like Johnny kind of like brings so much presence and personality that you never really question whether or not he can hold his own in any of these battles, or even against Daniel. Like obviously Daniel beats the shit out of him, but like you believe that he's not going to quit, which was what, you know, was important to me for the character.
Yeah, one thing I noticed, funny enough, I don't know if you're aware, but were you a big fan of 24? Because I noticed from the first movie, right?
Yeah.
Harbor is in 24, and then Alexander Siddig was also.
My wife was.
24.
I watched the one season of 24 that then got ripped off for like Olympus Has Fallen and White House Down.
Yeah,
which was good. I was like, wow, a Die Hard in a White House. That's a pretty good idea. And then like everyone's like, yes, it is. So yeah, no, I didn't. I that was kind of like while I was in college when that one came out. So I was like not watching TV, like, and you'd have to buy DVDs and watch everything. So kind of like I caught some of that type of stuff. But to answer your other question on the other casting, it was, so our UK casting director. And because it was a UK co-production, I think that really benefited of getting these like crazy good British actors, like James Cosmo, Alexander Siddig, and Rhoda Mitra. That was all sort of like the last minute. And Matthew Chouse, who, like, you know, I was really nervous. I'm like, what are we going to do? And he was just like, calm down. The closer we get to the shoot date, it's going to all work out. You know, people start to realize they don't have a job lined up for the summer. They're going to come to Lithuania for 2 weeks. They're going to bang this out. They're going to have a great time. And it's exactly, he was 100% right.
That's good.
Yeah. And it was like, so I think it is funny too, because it's like to me, like Dr. Mal was like, in my head on the script, it was almost like a smaller thing. But then once you cast Rhoda Mitra, it's like she's just got such movie star presence that it was like, okay, now we have like, you know, this other plot line and action beats, and she can lead you all the way through this. So it was definitely, it was a little bit similar to me actually in the third act of Beyond Skyline, when I split up Eco and Frank, and you're like, you don't think you're going to just cut to a guy that you meet halfway through a movie like he's a lead character, but it was like, no, Iko's a movie star. You can just cut to him and you're going to follow his battle with the alien because like his eyes and his presence like pull you in as a viewer into his fights. So it was that same feeling of like, oh yeah, I'm just going to lean on this person's like charisma, and they'll take care of the rest, you know?
Did you find it harder to juggle the like having an extra storyline in there, like the for this movie?
No, it was not really. It wasn't hard to juggle. It was hard to make it, you know, because obviously I'm really like a fan of fast paced movies like this. That stuff, because it's one of the criticisms I see a lot, and it was like it was almost impossible to cut it any tighter without it not making sense. And sometimes people are like, well, you could totally lose that, and you're like, okay, but then she's just going to show up at the end and suck a bunch of aliens up into space, and you're not going to know what the fuck happened there. Like it's a pretty bare bones storyline as is. The only really thing I could think of even trimming is kind of like the girl, like, you know, Kate, when she like, you know, is sitting there with a gun looking at the brush, but almost every other scene is pretty much the bare bones of what you need. It's only like four different intercuts. And I kind of, we got, you know, Yayan was a late addition as well, where it was like, you know, we were trying to add a little bit more Beyond Skyline energy into the movie, because it was like sort of towards prep, I was kind of getting a little nervous, like, we don't really have like the same, you know, madcap martial arts. What if, you know, let's see what Yayan's up to. And then it was like, fuck it. Should he be a new character? And I was like, no, it's going to fit perfectly into this. And it all, you know, wrote him into Dr. Mal's plot line. And I love that reveal of him like coming out and just ripping heads off and stuff is like my favorite part. So yeah,
I think the Earth scenes complement the movie overall pretty well, just because you have that little bit of a break in between, where the majority of the movie takes place on Cobalt.
Yeah, and it's another one of those things of like, you know, we initially wanted to film some of Cobalt on location in Gran Canaria, and it just became not realistic for the budget, which is like all these little choices that I'm like, but like, you know, we just finished the movie in October, and we're like, you know, it was like pencils down. There was no time to do even the slightest thing. So it was like, it kind of was the only way to get it made was the way that we did it. So I think it is important to get out of that like claustrophobic, dark blue visual thing and go to that open kind of breathable air in the Earth scene. So yeah, I think it's definitely one of those things that like, you know, I get the note, but I've seen the movie without him, and it's not as good. So it's one of those things where you're like, everybody's got the different things, but as the editor, you try everything. You know, there was one of the last versions before we locked edit in February, I took out the scene where Rose, you know, it's after one of the characters dies and they confront her about, you know, what's going on with her powers. Right. And it's revealed about Leon's sister. Mm-hmm. And he's like, can you do your job or not? And she walks off. And right after that, after we do this extra little beat on the end where Rose kind of says this thing's been killing her whole life and she thinks he's got one shot left. Let's make it out. We took that second part of it out. And it was interesting because, like, you know, it definitely moved faster, but I felt like less connected to Rose. And I felt like when she got up to the edge of the core drive, that I didn't understand why the stakes were important to her and why she was so nervous, because she hadn't explained that like that this thing is killing her and that each time she uses it, that could be it. So it just kind of was like, you know, you push it all the way up to the edge and then you're like, you know, I'm really happy that I didn't make that choice. And of course the scene is like in every trailer, because you need the hero to like kind of say a line like that, like, let's make it count. You know, we got, you know, it's all that type of thing that like, it was definitely like to, you know, they call it like an obligatory scene. It was like a scene that needed to be there, that you needed her to kind of say like, push back eventually with some vulnerability and declare where she was at the story at that point, because we are kind of dropping you in the deep end with all these weird powers and what exactly can she do and what is the core drive anyway. So I think to me, what helped get through the sci-fi gobbledygook is Lindsay just being so emotionally kind of honest and allowing herself to be vulnerable all the way through the movie, that even if some of those things are hit and miss, you're just, you know, where we're at because she's pulling you through with her eyes.
Yeah, we felt the same, that she did a great job just showing like a little bit of everything, right? Like how like it's affecting her, but then like how she's still trying to like, you know, power through it, and because she knows she has this like power, that like, you know, great power, great responsibility, right? Like that kind of thing. So she's still like,
but she does such a good job at like making the powers look like they're coming from something too. That's like my favorite thing, because I always get annoyed when the superheroes are doing something, but I don't feel like they're ever exhausted. And like, it's like, well, we all know that like energy comes from somewhere.
Yeah.
It's one of the things I love about, you know, Captain America, is that he always like is taking a beating and he looks winded. Yeah. And he's like, he's all bleeding and he's like, he's just going to keep going. But like, I think some of that imagery, why it connects so much, is that like, you know, that's his character. He's never going to quit. And so I think that was a little bit of something, that I was wanted in her, that I was like, it's not like, you know, like Superman always just grimaces and then just pushes through, and you don't really know like, where is it coming from? And so I wanted that to be that, you know, she was showing you how much energy she had in the tank. And it's just like you or I, like, we could run for a mile and we'll be okay. But then like 10 minutes later, we have to run another mile. It's not going to be as good. And so like, she kind of like gets exhausted in these, you know, 15-minute increments of the movie, and it's like whether or not she gets her power boost to go, you know, like you could actually do like a Mortal Kombat or whatever, like a video game power boost on her for the whole movie, and it
would loading up again.
It would all track.
Like the power's loading.
Yeah.
She's got one more.
Yeah, like Halo. Yeah, like her Master Chief shield goes up with her health. That would be. Yeah. I should do that as a director's cut with the Halo interface.
That's definitely good handling there. That's one of the issues that I think that with the Superman on screen is a big issue, where they're not handling him well, or you as an audience member is just thinking this guy's just gonna survive anyways. Nothing's ever gonna take him down. Yeah. So unless you give me something on screen that shows that he's actually vulnerable, or he's going to maybe not survive, then, you know, I'm not gonna know. So Lindsay definitely gave us that performance that and she showed us that she is vulnerable.
You know who did a really great job of it, and it's one of my favorite MCU movies, is Thor Ragnarok, like, which is another one that, like, when people are like, well, what are the powers and how are they defined? And I'm like, I don't know. Thor's been in like 6 movies, maybe 7, and I still don't know what he can and can't do. Yeah. But I'm always emotionally can connect with what he does. But like, you know, like the Hulk super punches him from like outer space into the ground and he wakes up without a bruise. Like, I don't know. But then someone can just rip his eyeball out and it's like, sure. Yeah. But eventually he'll get electricity and he's just more powerful than he was before. It's like, to me, that was a little bit of the same spirit I was riffing on, is that like, people actually care less about the logic and it's more about the emotion. And it's like the emotion in the moment in Thor Ragnarok, when he like remembers who he is and he has the flashback to Odin and the electricity fills him. I don't give a shit about like, well, how come we couldn't access that before? It just works. Yeah. Similarly in Spider-Man 2, I think with Sam Raimi's, where it's like, he's losing his powers the whole time. What's going on? What happened? And then in the third act, when, you know, what he cares about most is in danger, it focuses and it comes back, and they never give you kind of a neat explanation of why. It's like, it's all tied to self-belief, really. And I think that's kind of more satisfying.
It does.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Totally agree.
Yeah.
It's like the Goku in Dragon Ball, just always just comes back stronger.
Yes. Yeah, there's some definite anime imagery in the last 2 movies that I'm indebted to. And this one, my favorite shot that I feel is the very anime shot, is at the end when she's like blasting the energy kind of right into camera in like super slow-mo. And the reason why I'm so proud of that one is because it was like okay, how are we going to do this? And the initial idea is we're going to put her on a wire. And I was kind of like, having shot people on wires, it's a very inexact science for our schedule. Like we had that whole armory fight at the end of the movie on the spaceship was like 4 days. So to get all those moving parts, to actually put her on the wire in the set wasn't even going to be a possibility. So they're like, we'll put her on the wire on second unit on green screen. And I'm like, so I have this beautiful set, and the most important hero shot of the whole scene is going to be like a blurry fucking green screen behind her head. It just, so I'm like pacing on set as we're doing other stuff. And I'm like, well, what if we just like put her on the dolly? And they're like, what do you mean put her on the dolly? And I was like, okay, all right. So then I described what I wanted to DP, and they're like, yeah, okay. So they got a sled and they put it in front of the dolly when we laid the track back.
Yeah.
And so she just kind of turns, and it's like she's flying back, and she just literally attached to the camera as we're going back. So we have all of the in-camera set behind her with the moving lights, and it wasn't on the schedule. So Lindsay was like, oh, I didn't think I had to like pour my heart out into the lens today, and was a little uncomfortable with the camera being like right in her business. And I was like, no one's going to be thinking about the camera like being on anything. It's all going to be the emotional climax of the movie.
Yeah.
Trust me, trust me, trust me. And so, yeah, even the first take, she like went and did it. And then halfway through was like, no, I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it. So, you know, we really like psyched her up. And then she did that take that's in the movie where she's just like, ah, and it's like, it really feels like a guitar solo type of moment that I was like, you know, I was just so happy that she, you know, trusted us enough and gave us, delivered on something that like, yeah, like if that's not on the day and you think you're just doing kind of an action-y stunt type of thing, but then all of a sudden you have to really give everything you got, it can be disarming. So yeah, that to me is my favorite shot of the whole movie. Yeah.
Especially in the moment where you're just caught off guard and saying, we're doing something totally different now.
Yes. Yeah. and you know, you got to remember, like when she's looking at the monitor, it's just her fist in the camera. There's none of that energy. So you're like, what are you picturing here? Is this going to really look cool? Or am I going to look like I'm just, you know, screaming in everybody's face? And I'm like, I promise you it's going to look cool. And of course it's in the trailer, and it's very, you know, like I said, my favorite shot.
Yeah, perfect trailer scene for sure. That one.
Yeah.
Made for the trailer.
Exactly.
Great shot, yeah.
It's actually the type of things that I didn't do. I felt like enough in the second movie, just from the experience where I was like, we're so run and gun and kind of handheld that there's not like a ton of reaction shots. It's a lot of like mediums, and it's a lot of really great kinetic camera work. But I felt like I was so kind of like, you know, just blistering through the whole movie that there's not as many like, let's check in on the character close-up moments. And it was something I really wanted to do more on in this one.
I was going to ask, actually, is there, aside from Skylines, and we're obviously talking about that, but is there anything else that you have in the works that you want to talk about, or something in the future that you've been thinking about?
Yeah, there's a project that I'm excited about, and it's kind of, you could kind of see how it would be something I'm building off what I'm doing. It's called Abomination, and it's an Arctic set, World War II period Arctic set, creature survival adventure film. And so you know, it's like it's a more, I'd say a little bit more mature, a little darker, a lot more Dredd. For a good portion, it's a one-man show, and but it's definitely would be, you know, you could understand someone who just built an alien planet and works with a lot of creatures, making a movie in the Arctic with you know, a really scary monster. So I'm hoping to get that done, to get shooting on that next year, but you just never know. Especially, I mean, even without a pandemic, I think it's probably never been harder to make an original movie. There's, especially in the world where I am, where it's like outside the studios and sort of this indie sci-fi creature stuff, like it's one of the great privileges of being able to make these Skyline movies is that because of the IP, we're able to, people can see, oh, they know what it is, and we can continue to get these really cool adventures made at a pretty great price point, but still enough to play with, right? But like the Abomination, it's like it's an original movie. It'll probably have half the budget of a Skyline movie, but need like 4 times as bankable of a star. And you're like, okay, like how is that like actually, a sustainable model? But you never know. You can get lucky with these things, and they can continue to grow and take on life of their own. I mean, even Skylines had a smaller budget originally. Both of the last 2 movies, Beyond Skyline and Skyline, started with smaller budgets. That once we got cast and stuff going, that people get excited and we get a little bit more infusion, we get a little bit more to play with. So you have to be kind of delusionally optimistic, or else it's an impossible business to survive in.
Yeah, it's definitely tough operating just under like the scarcity, right? It's not like
Yes.
here you go, Liam, here's $200 million. I'm sure that's
No.
also difficult in its own way, because it's like so much money. You're like, what do I do with all this money?
Yeah, I mean, the first movie I worked on, the AVP2, was like 40 million, and the way that money broke down, I think the shooting budget was only like 12 or something. It was like, and even then, it didn't make much sense, and it was so much oversight. Like that's one of the reasons why I was on set, because like the studio wouldn't approve action scenes, so they're like shooting the stuff that day, and they're trying to get like the previs blocking for like the sewer set piece approved, and it's like they signed off on the script months ago, but now they were like, we need a bigger fight, and it was like, okay, so there'd be so much, so it's so hard to make a movie, even the way I'm doing it, where it's basically Matthew and I and our HODs and first AD and our cast, like everyone getting comfortable with what we're doing and moving on. But like to then have these other people that aren't even there giving you these emails with these like demands of things, it was definitely really hard. So to be on a $200 million movie, like I can't even imagine. I'm sure it's a lot of paralysis on what you can and can't do. And even if you have a better idea, you can't do it. Whereas the benefit of this is that if I didn't like a VFX shot, I'd be like, okay, I'm just going to take that shot over and I'll give it to my friend and he's going to work on it, and I'll just pay him directly. And I don't even tell anybody. It just goes in the movie, and no one says anything. It's like, it's kind of that was what was nice,
Yeah. Different in terms of like, I guess, red tape and like stuff you can.
Yeah, there's just no red tape.
Yeah. It's like, no, follow this process, right? You don't want.
Well, that's what I like to say about Beyond Skyline. When people are like, how did this get made? I was like, because there were literally no adults on set. Like there was no adult supervision. I feel like I became the adult. Like I think Frank was the adult on Beyond Skyline. He was like, you're this guy's just like a fucking puppy with his tongue hanging out his window, hanging out like with his head out of the car window. He's just like cackling and moving, like, let's go. And so then, in Skylines, I kind of was the adult, which is a frightening thing because I'm still pretty immature. So it was like, there's just kind of an abandon in them that we're not going to like overthink things and not take ourselves too seriously.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know we're way past
Frank's such a powerhouse.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. He's got a lot of energy, and it's like, it's very, authentic. And so it was perfect. It's perfect for that movie, kind of grounding it. I think it's what him and Lindsay have in common, is that they're like the super physical, authentic presence. And it's so fun to put someone that authentic in such a categorically inauthentic situation as being like on an alien ship or on an alien planet, because they ground it in a really great way, and it's fun to see them kind of bounce off of those worlds. So that's kind of the through line between the two of them, which even was something I was conscious of to cast her and Beyond. But but yeah, no, I that's what could be so fun about making what I was jokingly called it Skyline Forever with a 4, of course. But we'll figure out a better title if it ever comes to it.
I actually saw a review, and this particular review was ripping into the fact that you put the 3 in the name. I'm like, come on, man, like, come on.
Oh, which by the way, I didn't put the 3 into the name. The name was Skylines. And then the producer came to me and said, we can't clear the title. Like, we shot the movie with the name Skylines, the script Skylines. It's got that.
Yeah.
They said, we can't clear this title. There's this big German Netflix show. Netflix wants us to change the title. Whether or not all this is exactly true, this is what was told to me. And it was like, okay, so I don't want to change the title, because to me that Skylines is the direct homage to Aliens. It's like, you're not kidding me by saying this is an Aliens riff. Like, I'm very deliberately telling you in the title that I love Aliens, and this is my love letter to a space adventure like it. Yeah. So I'm not changing the title. So, okay, well, what if we do put the 3 there? It's like, okay, as long as it's just still Skylines. Yeah, it's still Skylines. So then that comes out, and I kind of embraced it at that point. I'm like, it at least kind of tells you that there's 3 of the movies if people don't know. Because, the marketing budget of the first one was like 40 million. The marketing budget of the second one was like 250 grand. So obviously people know about the first. They're not going to know about the second as well, because it just didn't have that worldwide marketing push. Mm-hmm. So I didn't mind it that much. And then all of a sudden, like a month ago, they come back, and I just noticed that, like, in the digital, they kind of started calling it Skylines again. I'm like, hey guys, what's happening? They're like, the 3 is a big problem in like the VOD platforms, because like just putting the number into it, it was some strange, again, it's like what the information is to me. So, we're just going to call it Skylines. I was like, I already finished the movie and there's a 3 on the E in the movie, like if they had said that, and I'd be like, I would have been like, no sweat. But like, guess what? Like, the title is Skylines with the 3, because at the end of the movie in big, huge chrome lettering, that's what's going to come up forever and ever. So I just like, wash my hands. I'm fine with it. I actually kind of prefer the 3 in a weird way, but it was one of those, like, that's in the sci-fi.
It was just a clever fix.
It was a clever fix to a weird situation. To me, I just didn't want to call it Skyline 3 because it's not Skyline 3, it's Skyline. So just that to me was the big distinction. It's not, I think Skyline 3 makes it feel smaller, and it's like, it's a space adventure movie. It's not the Penthouse a third time. That's kind of what whether or not that makes any sense to anyone else, it's what made sense to me.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that the critics that don't like that are the same critics that don't understand the movie.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's an interesting thing. I think actually because to me, I think it's the best looking of the movies, and then you'll get these like, and that's kind of like most of the reviews that love it are like, wow, it's got the best lead character. It's got the best look. Mm-hmm. I can't believe what they did for the budget. And then you'll get these like outlier reviews that are like really bad. Like, not just if it's not your thing and it's like a dismissal, but the outlier ones that are like, oh, it looks horribly cheap. It's like that. I'm like, what do they think is looking so cheap? And I actually think it's the Trent. It's like, if you're a person who can accept that Trent is a guy in a suit who's like, a main character, then you're going to love the movie. But if you're the type of person that looks at it and is like, oh my God, I can't believe it's not a fully CG creature, then it's like, yeah, okay, you're never going to love it anyway. But that's where this hyperbolic, anger seems to come from. And I also think there's a weird residual anger of just like, how the fuck did they get these movies made? Why does this movie have 3 and why not like Dredd? And I'm like, dude, I'm first in line for a Dredd sequel. Yeah. I would make a Dredd. Give me a budget for a Skyline movie. I will give you a Dredd sequel. They spent like $80 million on the thing. It's not my fault that the economics don't make sense. Yeah. Like these are cheap movies that we keep continuing to make, and it's all through just blood, sweat, tears, and passion for, the characters and the genre. Yeah. And so, it is weird. I feel like I'm defending myself too much, but it is at least fun to kind of vent about it, because I never want to do that on like Twitter or anything like that, because I just feel like it's a total losing situation. So at least if I do it in a podcast, it's just kind of like I can get off my chest. But yeah.
Yeah, with us, we know we actually divide. We have four reviewers on the team, and depending on what the film is, we have each reviewer is dedicated to a different genre. So
that makes perfect sense.
Me and James usually do a more sci-fi, action, thrillers, and we have a couple other reviewers that do like family dramas and that kind of thing, more homey movies, low budget films, that kind of thing. And it doesn't make sense to give one of an action thriller to one of them if this is what they focus on.
Yeah. Right. No, I know it's total luck of the draw, and like you'll get it's also like luck of the draw on like the Rotten Tomatoes, like a group, like a site like Flickering Myth. They did 2 reviews, one kind of mixed negative, one positive. The mixed negative one is the Rotten Tomato critic, and so then your Rotten Tomato thing goes down. But we actually have way more positive reviews than our RT score, but they don't qualify. So It is like I likened it to like election night. It's like you've already voted. There's nothing you can do about it, and you're just like, please don't have like Wisconsin and Pennsylvania fuck us over right now. It kind of is what it is, but it's a weird process of anxiety and just sort of like driving yourself crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm actually really, really happy that it's just out there, and the people that really want to see this movie are the ones that it was made for. So
absolutely,
exactly.
It's what's nice about kind of like knowing where you are, I guess, 3 movies in, and knowing who your fan base is, and obviously Lindsay having a pretty large fan base from the 100, and they kind of always wanted to see her be the lead, and so hopefully this is kind of scratching that itch.
Yeah, for sure. It's still going, right? The movies are made, like there's a cast that's dedicated to it, a cast and crew dedicated to it. There's a lot of heart in the project, and there's clearly like a fan base and has a place like in the movie universe, right? So like for anyone to complain that why it's getting created or this and that, like they obviously don't understand like the way.
I know. There's some of it they're like, it's like, dude, I'm sorry your script didn't get made, but it really has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
There's like there's definitely that vibe sometimes. Yeah.
They're the same angry Star Wars fans.
Definitely.
Same group of people.
Do you think so? I think, yeah. I mean, because I feel like some of the guys and some of the VFX people and stuff I work with that were like are kind of angry Star Wars fans, like this movie. So I don't know. I feel like that's all weird crossovers, but I'm definitely enjoying Mandalorian quite a bit, and it is super weird though. Like I actually Rise of Skywalker, when I first saw it, I really enjoyed it, and it's one of those ones that all the criticism definitely seeped in, and you're like that. But like a year later, nobody talks about that movie. It almost feels like it didn't happen in a weird way. It doesn't even feel like it's like all the announcements that they made for all the different shows don't feel like they're acknowledging it in a weird way.
Yeah, they're not acknowledging it at all. They've actually announced a TV show in almost every single either prequel or sequel, but they totally eliminated that trilogy.
Yeah, I noticed that. It just kind of like I'm wondering when they kind of do the big retcon of that trilogy.
Yeah. Right now they're going to focus on the High Republic, which takes place 200 years before episode 1. But they already announced a show for that, The Acolyte.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. No, I saw all the announcements, and I definitely have mixed emotions on it, to be honest with you, because it's like even when you're watching Mandalorian, it's that same thing. I'm like, oh man, they're just doing all the different kind of riffs of things that you would want to do in an indie sci-fi space with this unlimited budget and with this IP that they're just going to swallow up all the viewership no matter what. And so there is this kind of like monoculture thing that's happening that, like, to be honest, like when I started in Hollywood, it was 2005. I saw Revenge of the Sith in, at the Grove Theater opening night. And it was like this kind of amazing experience. And then like, I felt like the next 5 years felt like there's almost like more possibilities in a weird way, where like I had a bunch of different projects that like had something of like a Star Wars type riff, but like in an R direction, something of a Star Wars type riff, but in like a mythological direction.
Right.
And, they had buzz and those things could be happening. But like now, like one script I wrote with Joshua Cortez from the first Skyline was kind of like for a few dollars more in space. So it was all like this space bounty hunters, man with no name type of thing, but in a very kind of like Outland, the Sean Connery type of universe. So it's very practical, like, future possible, solar system, but with bounty hunters. But now it's like, who's going to make that? You get the Mandalorian kind of doing the space bounty hunter thing at such an amazing level. So there's a little bit of that feels like daunting. Like, man, like, how much space is there going to be for everything else when Star Wars is literally no longer even just a movie every couple of years. It's actually like a genre. It's an entire genre when you see that many shows. And the same with the MCU. It was one of those moments was like, well, I hope I can get a job on some of these things, because I don't know if there's any sci-fi left for the rest of us.
Yeah. Actually, Disney, they just announced that they were doing a Firefly show on Disney Plus.
Really?
Fans are really pissed because fans have been asking for a second season, and they announced that they're doing a reboot. And it's been like 10 years, and fans have like put together like petitions. Like,
it's been more than 10 years.
It's been more than 10 years. Yeah.
Yeah. That was like 2008, 2000. Yeah.
Early 2000s. And it's just so
that was definitely another influence on the movie. Like the, when they're coming into the spaceship and stuff and moving around, we were definitely one of those movies that I was riffing on, but also like, just such a good job with kind of the female characters and the dialogue and stuff. So it was definitely one of those that I love the kind of like, the sarcasm within this sci-fi setting. So yeah, no, I really like Firefly. I really like Serenity. But even if they do a reboot, wouldn't they still be able to like bring some of the old cast in? I'm sure. You know the way fans are.
Definitely.
No, I mean, not to get into that, but like, I do think like I would have been so down for that Ghostbusters movie if it was just Ghostbusters 3. It just had female characters, but like, Venkman or them still showed up for a scene or whatever, but it existed in a world where the other Ghostbuster movies existed. I don't think any of that uproar, I mean, some of it probably would have, because there's misogynist creeps no matter what. But I think the kind of like, you can't just tell people the thing that's so important to them no longer exists when the thing still looks really good. I think that's the problem of, you kind of have, and it would have only changed like the first act. It wouldn't have changed really the movie. So it's like, why not just have it be, something that is a legacy within these sequels that are still look amazing, still hold up. I was trying to think of if any other movie had that exact same. I guess RoboCop was another one to me. It was like, why not just have this be in a world where like, Alex, Murphy is the original RoboCop, but now this is the future tech RoboCop. It doesn't really change anything about your story. You're just changing the characters' names and you're giving us a little bit of world building background. It just seems like a colossal mistake to tell people the things that they love don't exist anymore and that you're going to do it better. Yeah, that makes sense. I think that hit the nail on the head with a lot of the fan base and the backlash. I think some of it is from gross other places, but I do think the more general one is that like you know, like we said, like just acknowledge the thing's existence, build off of what worked. You can still tell original stories within that.
Yep.
But yeah, that I would think the same thing with like you're saying with Firefly or Serenity. It's like you already have such a passionate fan base. Why not just have a new ship, but you get to, you know, have some of the old actors do the handoff and show up every once in a while, like season finale, you know, we bring them back in, you know what I mean? Like it's not that hard.
Not that hard.
It's probably why Disney's
Not
so
that
good.
hard.
Disney's so good with that, right? They always keep the characters from everything, and they just in some way, but they bring in new characters and stuff. But everybody's still kind of part of the, you know, whatever like stuff they pick up, whether it's, you know, Marvel or Star Wars, they still add in like a little sprinkling of all the characters. But the universe is still there. You know that all those people are still kind of a part of it, and it keeps.
It's so interesting too about how like the pandemic affected Marvel really, because you know it. I think like most people, it was like the most dominant thing of the past 10 years, and thing I most look forward to. I was so and like I had a great time with pretty much all the movies. I think it's become like fashionable for filmmakers to like crap on those movies, but I think they're like kind of amazing that they managed to pull it off. I was there in the room for like 2 meetings for Iron Man 2, doing these failed Iron Man tests. And it was like 5 people in a room in Manhattan Beach. And like these 5 people kind of changed the industry. You know, it was Favreau, Kevin Feige, and a couple of the other producers. And like, you know, it to me, it's like, it's kind of amazing to see that there's just like 5 smart people and they built this thing out and they changed the way, you know, people not only make movies, but consume movies and think about movies. So I've always been a big fan, but it feels like this pandemic, like it's almost like I feel like in because it came right after Endgame and now it's a year, and like Black Widow feels kind of small, you know, like it's like, and we already saw the character's fate. So there's this weird feeling where I'm just super curious where it's going to go. The ones I'm most excited for are obviously for me personally, I just love the sci-fi ones like, you know, Guardians and Thor. Mm-hmm. And so those are the ones I'm most looking forward to, but it is an interesting place where we find ourselves.
The next Thor should be good. It's going to be a clash between the Guardians and Thor. So it's going to be a cool one.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to that one a lot.
Well, Liam,
we're way over time now, but
no problem.
Time with you, and
no, it's fun talking with you guys.
Yeah, great.
We had an amazing time. Like I'm looking at the clock, I'm like, holy.
Yeah, I was like, your AMA is coming up very soon, so I don't want to.
Yeah, I know. I need another coffee and a bathroom run.
Time flies when having fun.
Yeah, no, it was great talking with you guys. I'm happy to do any other time you want. If you guys have any other things you want, if there's movies down the line you want to talk, like you know. It's great hanging with you.
Totally. We reached out to Lindsay as well to see if she'd be interested. She's currently filming, so she said she's gonna let us know. But
yes,
you know, we love the film, we love the series, and you know, we do what we can to help promote it.
Yeah, you know, it might be interesting to do when like the Blu-ray comes out in January, because I know she just did a ton of press, and I was feeling exhausted from all the press, and then I texted her last night. I was like, I'm feeling exhausted. And I just reminded that like you're filming a TV show and you're doing the press, and I should, you know, shut the fuck up. Yeah, and she kind of laughed at that and was like, yeah, you know, cheers. But yeah, so I think it would be smart to try to get on because the Blu-ray comes out, I think, in the middle of January. Okay. And it'll be interesting to see where things are with all of her fans and the feedback. It'll be kind of probably a more fresh conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
Sounds good.
All right, guys.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely. Talk soon.
Take care.